Welcome to International Investor and our London studio. We are delighted to be joined by a double award winner for Best Renewable Energy Company and ESG Company of the Year in the LATAM region. It is Atlas Renewable Energy, which is Latin America's largest privately owned independent renewables power producer and one of the world's fastest growing renewable energy companies. The company develops, finances, builds, and operates clean energy projects while prioritizing community engagement. Sustainability and ESG best practices are at the heart of the business. I'm delighted to be joined by the founder and the chief executive, Carlos Ucho Barrera. So, Carlos, one of the first things that people learn about your company is that it is so much more than the megawatts. I'll allow you to explain why.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and pleasure to be here, Sarah. Thank you. Look, yeah, I would say I would start with the mission of the company. Really, the mission is really to accelerate the energy transition in a sustainable manner. Those are not, redundant terms. Yes, we're in the renewable space, which is inherently sustainable, but the focus of the company is really to do it in a way that we serve as a force for good as an organization, and we support the different stakeholders that are tied to our projects. Let me first start with the strategy of the company. Our strategy is really around partnering with large corporations, large industrials, and to work with them to transition their energy demand from conventional sources to clean sources of energy. And so we work with the largest, I would say, most prominent clients across LATAM. They're clients of Atlas. And so we work with them to find solutions for them to make that energy transition. Power generation is usually the low-hanging fruit for a lot of these large industrials that have complex manufacturing processes that they also have to shift. And so we help them by procuring that power and then figuring out other ways to continue helping them make that energy transition. And the last thing I'd say is, look, as you said, we're one of the largest renewable energy players in the region, but we're also looking to be a standard bearer for how to do renewables across the markets that we operate in. And that's really in every sense. So certainly ESG is a big part of the company, but how we do development, how we do construction, how we operate our assets, we really try to raise the bar and create, the standard bearer company of how we should do this in the renewable sector.
Just allow me to be devil's advocate just a little bit, Carlos, because ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, is the foundation for the way Atlas operates. But how difficult is this to implement when large-scale infrastructure may impact local communities, their environment, and wildlife?
Yeah, look, this is certainly a challenge. I mean, the first thing is I think we need to be very selective in where we decide to implement a project. We don't want to affect areas with social or environmental challenges that are complex. But the reality is, regardless of where you decide to do it, there are still challenges. Our focus is to create long-term value for all the stakeholders involved. That's the focus. And so what we do is we engage with communities from very early on, way before you start construction, you start even thinking about construction. We engage with them with transparency to explain, what is this about? What is the opportunity? What is the project that we're looking to build? How does it affect them? And to really gauge their appetite as a community for the project. That's really, really important. I think that engagement, doing it in a transparent way from the very beginning and establishing a dialogue around what are the benefits it can bring to the community, that usually allows for a very constructive relationship to build. That's the first step. Our focus then is really, if there's reception to what we're trying to achieve, we focus on identifying social projects that serve to capacity build. So what does that mean? It's really supporting them to create the means so that the community itself can create sustainable benefits over the longer term. So it's not let's build something for them only. It's let's capacity build, let's educate them, let's build the means so that the community can then carry on with a benefit that they can sustain over the longer term. So that's, I would say that's the focus. And what we found is incredible receptiveness to these kinds of projects. And I think we're able to create these partnerships with these communities that create a win-win situation.
So are you getting the balance right between explanation and listening?
It's, you know what, it's always a challenge. It's funny because sometimes, you have a set idea of, look, this community could benefit from this, but the reality is they may not want that. And so it certainly is a two-way conversation to really ascertain, okay, what does this community feel they need, and where can we add value to these needs? And so it's absolutely a two-way conversation. And it's hard, I think, to sometimes gauge, how much should we suggest versus how much should we listen?
I need you to put your thought leadership hat on, if you wouldn't mind, Carlos, because more broadly, how important is ESG in defining and shaping business in the 21st century universally?
Yeah, look, I think it's a great question. It's very topical right now. Obviously, the word ESG may or may not have become a bit more controversial in certain circles. But cutting through kind of the acronym or the language, I think the focus really is to create shared value. I think that's always a good thing as we see it. From one side, from the project perspective, it allows the company to obtain a true license to operate. That protects the investment, it protects the project. And at the same time, it allows contributions to be made to the local stakeholders. So it's basically conscious, sustainable practices. And I think that with a long-term outlook is always a positive thing. For a company trying to establish a leadership position, it's also a must. And I think what's also interesting is our clients completely agree with that approach and are looking to interact with companies that have that kind of focus. And so if you look across our projects, it certainly ticks those boxes where we create that shared long-term value. And again, so it's not easy always, right, to come about it, but I think working with the community, right, understanding their needs, you can navigate through that and find projects that really create that benefit for them long term.
I need to ask you about return on investment, because what advice would you give to startups and established business who might think it's too expensive to implement ESG and they'll never get the return on investment back?
Yes, look, first I would say it's difficult to have kind of a one size fits all approach. Okay, every business is different. Generally speaking, the initiatives that we do are really transformational. It first connects the business with the communities in which it operates. The shared benefits really act to elevate the company's brand and standing with that community. That engagement creates something special for the employees, right? That benefit can't be overstated, particularly with the newer generations of employees, which are moved by that, right? And want to be a part of that. By the way, the benefit it brings, as I said before, for your partners and clients is also important. In some cases, it can be transformational for them and it can set you apart from the rest of your competitors. I would say the effort has to be genuine, though, right? It has to have a level of vocation here that you want to make a genuine contribution. If you have that, all these other benefits I mentioned, I think, are realized. It's got to make sense, right? You have to do it within the means that you're able to do it. Otherwise, you start stretching yourself and then it becomes unsustainable.
Every business is indeed different. And let's look at your business, because you are a technology enabled business. So what technology are you utilizing, innovating, or creating?
I think it's a great question. Look, I think we do see ourselves very much as a technology savvy organization. I think there's a number of firsts that we've brought to the region. We operate across Latin America mostly. And so we were the first to roll out True Capture, the first to roll out bifacial technology, the first to roll out dry cleaning robots for soiling that don't use water. early adopters of machine learning tools, a few years back when it wasn't so kind of prominent. What we see today is really battery storage, right? And I think that is providing just a huge step for renewables in general. And the reason for that is because the nature of renewables is intermittent. When the sun is shining, you generate power. When the wind is blowing, you generate power. When it's not, you don't. That's problematic. It's problematic for end consumers that don't have intermittent demand. They have constant demand. And so what the batteries allow you to do is essentially, store energy so that during those intermittent occasions, you're able to power your client's needs with stored energy. So it is a huge transformational step for the industry, and it's been enabled by recent just developments in batteries and costs coming down in battery technology. And I'll mention just an example here. So recently we signed a deal with Codelco, the largest public company in Chile, where with solar plus storage, we're offering them a 24/7 solution, right? This was unprecedented before, something that you couldn't do with solar only. So these are some of the innovations, I would say, and some of the possibilities that are coming because of best technologies.
So, taking the technology and the ESG initiatives into consideration, how are these translating into an increase in market share for Atlas?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, as of now, we're the largest player in pretty much all of our core markets. But I think what we see is huge opportunities in this space, right? There's tremendous momentum behind renewable power. As of today, you have basically 80%, I believe, of new generation capacity in 2023 came from renewables. So it's become the prominent source of new generation. And so what we see there is, again, companies that are looking to make the energy transition, this is the low-hanging fruit. And so we are positioned to serve these clients with clean power. And in this sense, to your question, all innovations, right? Technological, financial, commercial, business model innovations, like what I mentioned with batteries, these are essential, right? And for most of them, by the way, most of the clients as well, an ESG program is also important. So all these different factors that we have on innovation, on ESG, business model innovation, and so forth, are essential to serve the different clients with solutions, right? Energy solutions to help make that energy transition.
Just a couple more questions, Carlos. And to use an increasingly redundant metaphor, you're at the coalface of renewable energy. So, what trends are you seeing in the sector in terms of peer adoption or emerging sustainable solutions?
I think what we're seeing is an acceleration of the momentum around energy transition. And I think especially for renewable power generation, as I mentioned before. And one of the key reasons is cost. So the cost of renewable power continues to come down. And so anybody seeking to source an incremental unit of energy, the cheapest available alternative is renewables, right? And so we see that acceleration. And so now we're getting into issues around intermittency, as I mentioned before, right? How do we serve this growing demand of different clients that are seeking this kind of energy, right? And then what's really unlocking and enabling a lot of this is absolutely batteries. And so that's what we see as the key short to medium trend in the region that will continue enabling more renewable power.
It's nice that you use the word we, suggesting that it's a team effort, but I do want to focus on you because you are the chief executive and the founder. Atlas is undoubtedly groundbreaking, and for that, leadership needs 360-degree vision and a certain amount of crystal ball gazing. So, how can leadership shape a company's approach to business and sustainability? What advice can you share?
It's a great question. New entrepreneurs sometimes believe it's all about the idea, right? It's about the business model. It's about that's what will basically turn it into a long-term sustainable success. But the reality is, it's much less about that and much more, I would say, around leadership. First, like many others, right, I understand and believe that company culture is paramount. Creating a strong culture requires leadership, requires leading by example, requires consistency in upholding certain core values. This needs to start at the top, and it needs to be strong enough that it permeates across the entire organization. That's the first. But really what it's about is the journey that entrepreneurs are going to go through. And I think having the courage to follow a given path in the face of changing trends, in the face of all sorts of volatility that is going to come in and out. I think that makes the difference between an idea that fails or ends up succeeding over the long term. Similarly, having that same courage to change course, right? When everyone is asking to stay the course is equally important. So that leadership, injection of vision, of strategic direction, of judgment in the face of different priorities or different factors that are contributing to a given situation are really what makes or breaks an organization. And in terms of advice, I would tell people that there's no quick wins here. There's no easy solutions. I think leadership is about a never-ending journey into introspection, to continue better understanding yourself and to really find strength and courage in connecting with your core values. Leading from that source, that's the advice. You're going to have to put the work in day after day, but doing so, I think, will make you an effective leader and eventually an effective leader of leaders. That would be the advice.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly generous of you and courageous to share all that insight. And now I understand why Atlas is a double award winner. So congratulations again for being Best Renewable Energy Company and ESG Company of the year 2024 in the LATAM region. Carlos Ucha Barrera, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Sarah.